Artificial intelligence. India will add close to about $1 trillion by 2035 leveraging artificial intelligence. As I speak, all the G20 nations are embarking on a journey to curate, apply, and find the leverageability of artificial intelligence. Never been in the history of technology cycle, we've seen such an unprecedented wave of a technology, which is artificial intelligence. What's this hype all about? Why organizations, nations, humanity is talking about artificial intelligence? Over the last 20 years, we have seen various technology cycles. There has always been hype, there has always been that cycle of trajectory, and it dies down. But for the first time, we are talking about a technology which has got humongous application in terms of how it will impact economies, nations, and humanity. And this is where we say that when India would be able to apply artificial intelligence to the full glory, it will be a very different scenario altogether. Let's talk about some of the economic impact about our artificial intelligence. I mean, the numbers are staggering. The whole ability to mimic the human brain, the augmentations of intelligence machine, is pushing the envelopes for humanity, nations, to think about what artificial intelligence can do for them. Coupled with sophistication in image, voice, text, and video, is throwing unprecedented results in terms of organizations embracing artificial intelligence. In 2016 alone, close to about $26 to $40 billion have been spent on artificial intelligence. And if this is not enough, we are talking about a new segment of artificial intelligence garnering close to about $100 billion by 2025. There has been close to about $14 billion spent, which has happened in startups from artificial intelligence in 2017 alone. So when this kind of numbers, this kind of a dollar spend happens, the question which gets asked by everyone, is it getting adopted? Is it getting embraced? A lot of surveys have thrown very different results, but one of the very pertinent aspect of the survey which was done by McKinsey was that in 2019, close to about 75% of the C-suite executives of the top Fortune 500 companies will actively implement artificial intelligence. And we are also talking about the impact, because it's just not the adoption. We are talking about a significant lift, leveraging artificial intelligence in terms of augmentations of the top line. We're also talking about lift in terms of operational efficiency accentuation, and we're also talking about lift in terms of customer satisfaction surveys leveraging AI. This is where we say that the cusp of how organizations will benefit has beginning to start. When we also talk about the competition, we all know data is a strategic advantage today, is a strategic lever and an asset, but for the organizations which are laggard in artificial intelligence, $1.2 trillion worth of money will be stolen by the competition which is looking at very fast adoption of artificial intelligence versus the laggards. And this is where we say there is a direct correlation in terms of how organizations are moving swiftly to adopt artificial intelligence. And we've seen in the last almost few years that this whole aspect of how analytics, artificial intelligence, have started getting into our mainstream of our humanity in terms of personalizations, in terms of behavior change, in terms of how we also consume and buy products. I don't think so it's enough. What's happening is, if you look at the top nations today, America is using artificial intelligence as a Trojan horse to uplift their research within their country. China has already announced that they would like to be a leader in artificial intelligence by 2030. A country like South Korea would be spending close to about $840 million just to kind of proliferate the usage of artificial intelligence. In the scheme of things, where does India stand? I think we've got our own advantages and our own merits. Let's look at some of those. I think the first aspect, what we have to think about, that we are a technology hub. Close to about 160 billion worth of export happens every year through the technology. That contributes close to about 8% of our GDP. And we talk about close to about 1,500 global in-house centers of the large multinationals based out of India. So we already have a base of our technology. The government today is also working on various initiatives to kind of stem and curate the policies around artificial intelligence. We talk about our large population, close to about 2.6 million of STEM population pass out every year. So there is already a huge talent what we can leverage in terms of usage of artificial intelligence. And if that's not all, one of the very peculiar aspects of artificial intelligence is how can you get very diverse data set. With our whole demographics, whole topographic, the whole profiling of the individuals within different states what we have, there is a very diverse data set which is sitting in terms of how we can leverage the different usage of artificial intelligence. And I think that's where it comes to that if we have to attain a premier position in artificial intelligence, it's a sum total of few things. The very foremost is building that conducive, amenable ecosystem. You got to have large corporate houses, startups, PE, VC funds coming together to create that ecosystem, because out here it's a question of throwing dollars to uplift the research what is happening. The second aspect is how can we augment our academic ecosystem. We've got 6,000 colleges and universities within India. There is a diverse set of curriculum which is dated today. Can artificial intelligence be the harbinger of change in terms of creating a new set of academia and curriculum which will define the new age syllabus, whether it's for the schools, for the universities, for different institutions. But the talk today is that artificial intelligence cannot be left behind. And when we talk about this whole aspect of the ecosystem, the convergence happening, there are three broad steps which can be institutionalized within India for us to take an attempt to take a premier position in artificial intelligence. The first step is all about what we say education. China produces close to about 40,000 PhDs every year. We do just 1/10 of that. The whole ecosystem of not promoting research is stalling the growth of artificial intelligence. We need more investments, we need more corporate houses to come together and look at how IPs, those research papers, can be created in terms of minimal viable products for the usage of not only industries, but to ensure students get a skin in the game when they start working on the research papers. And that's where a very strong collaboration with academia and industry can come together. And this is where we say that can we infuse artificial intelligence from our school level as well. At the end of the day, our students would like to learn the new age courses, not the ones which do not have any relevancy anymore. The second aspect is all about what we say, how do we ensure that we enable this? Today, government is looking at creating policy around artificial intelligence. We are talking about a massive investments which is happening in terms of incubating startups which proliferate artificial intelligence. We're also talking about ecosystem where a lot of special economic zones, a lot of those tax incentives can be given if there is an investment which is done on artificial intelligence. Just an example, China is creating a whole city where they will be spending close to about $30 billion where 5,000 startups of artificial intelligence will be housed. Look at the kind of employment opportunities, IP generation, the kind of research work, and of course the business benefit which will generate once that whole ecosystem of 5,000 startup gets reverberated. This is where artificial intelligence can create a huge upswing in terms of what it means for the larger ecosystem. And if that's not enough, I think today we're also talking about, on the flip side, a lot of rhetoric around ethics of artificial intelligence. For the naysayers, it's the end of humanity, singularity, as some of them would like to call it. For the yes-sayers, it's all about what we say, the proliferation, the right usage of artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity. Now, many of us will always be intrigued that how artificial intelligence can actually be a premier technology enablement in the India ecosystem. And that's where, when we say that we're talking about ethics, a policy around how the right governance of data should be used, adopted, needs to come out. Because that's where we say that data, if harvested on the wrong side, can throw very different results, because then you've got human interventions and bias, and that will distort the entire picture. I think there's one commonality today in terms of what nations are trying to do. That one commonality around nations is when they use artificial intelligence, they're all talking about solving large, complex, unresolved problems for the humanity and the society. Let me take some of them in the context of India: large, complex, unresolved problems, leverageability by artificial intelligence. And many of them are already being attempted. Many of them have been showcased, exhibited, and there are enough proof points to substantiate the business impact it's throwing for the Indian economy. The first, agriculture. We've always thrust upon in terms of India being an agrarian economy. The whole aspect of measuring, labeling the soil density across India is a humongous task. Many of you may not be aware, it's done by one of the ITs in India. They have labeled each and every district, 600,000 villages of soil density, and they have put that in a master data management. All one needs to do is to apply those algorithms to start predicting the crop yield for that particular district and state, and going even beyond that, what kind of crops should be produced to uplift our overall agriculture production. There is always what we say a thrust when we say today technology is not just for the usage by the research and scientists. Look at this today. Many of the agriculture farmers today are using a helpline which is all activated by the chatbots in almost 76 Indian vernacular language. All they have to do is to dial that toll-free number, ask the query, and the query gets responded about any kind of an agriculture-related issue by a chatbot. Such is the usage of this chatbot. It's self-intuitive, self-learning, and it's got that ability to self-learn in its own way. So that's about the agriculture. We can also talk about one of the very big example. What we say is, how do we start using different aspect of ensuring that India can be a leader in the skills side? Today, there is a policy which is getting drafted where we are trying to ascertain the skill repository of the entire universities, graduates, postgraduates, in terms of the skill sets we have. That skill set repository could be a huge beneficiary for the government of India to look at what kind of courses, curriculums which needs to be decided, and what investment needs to be done in what kind of curriculums. The other aspect of India leveraging artificial intelligence is also what we say in solving our law cases. Today, there are close to about 33 million lawsuits which are pending in India. I made a presentation to the Bar Council of India, constituting for about 15 top judges of India last month, And the first question they asked, what is artificial intelligence in terms of making change in the law? And I said, look, at some level, when there are 400 sections and almost 890 subsections within our Indian law, the same thing in terms of identifying what kind of a section needs to be applied for a particular kind of a complaint can be done by an NLP engine, by a text query. All you have to do is to start resolving the cases, because an average age of the case is close to about 12 years. Now, this is where we are saying that artificial intelligence will also, in India, challenge the usual jobs. There is a lot of debate today about automation, artificial intelligence, kind of making or displacing a lot of jobs. But the aspect today is that artificial intelligence will not replace jobs. It will replace the task and the daily chores. And this is what will happen in terms of India attaining a premier position if we are willing to upskill and reskill our current talent workforce. The other aspect about artificial intelligence is also that when we talk about the usage in India, smart cities, it's got a huge investments behind all the state governments. The government today wants to model 31 smart cities in India in terms of the states which have more than 1 million populations. Traffic density is the biggest nuance. Sitting in Bangalore, we all can identify what can go wrong if the Google map is something what you cannot trust. This is where artificial intelligence could be of the rescue, where the traffic density volume, denominated on average day in terms of what can go wrong in terms of vehicular traffic, the roads getting jammed, the algorithms can start predicting and start dictating how the traffic lights across the major traffic junctions needs to be managed. And if that's not enough, healthcare, that's one big sector which will unravel a lot of opportunities for India in the time to come. The biggest change which is happening is starting 2019, the government will open all the data sets of the government hospitals, and the records of the patients will be up for many of the analytics AI professionals to look what has gone wrong in the past and what kind of preventive actions they need to take now to kind of change their symptoms in terms of the ailments or even in terms of prescription. Now look at this impact today. US has a track record of identifying the patient history for last 25 years. Anything in terms of prescription of drugs and medicine happens when you start tracking the whole patient data history. We don't have that out here. The whole set of artificial intelligence usage can throw different results. Because what we are talking about is all hospital records getting linked so that you walk into any hospital, you know what you have gone through in terms of your history of ailments in the last 5 years, 10 years and all. These are some of the instances which, when I talk about, will also make you intrigued. Can this happen in India? Because we have a vast, very heterogeneous, very kind of a, let's say, diverse kind of a workforce, very diverse outlooks, and even the regulations don't allow that. But let me also admit out here that it's also about what we are talking today is a race against the nations. As I alluded in my previous set of narrative, it's a race against not just leveraging artificial intelligence, it's a race against that we are talking about a huge uplift in terms of economic impact to India if we start using analytics and artificial intelligence from day one. To that extent, the government is trying to create an artificial intelligence policy. They're trying to curate new age curriculums in the colleges, and they're also looking at how large unresolved complex problems can be solved using artificial intelligence. The recent case of demonetization, the entire set of notices were being sent using a deep learning algorithm. GST, 1 billion transactions happen every day. That's the kind of impact we are talking about if a smart algorithm start predicting what kind of impact of GST we can have in different districts, what kind of collections will happen, and who's not adhering in terms of the GST collections. I think some of these examples, if we try to kind of aggregate, we've got a proof point that India could be the next Trojan horse amongst all the nations. Thank you so much.